On August 20th, 1966, a young boy climbed the grassy slopes of Morro do Vintem, Vintem Hill, on the outskirts of Niterói, Brazil. He was there to fly his kite, as children in the neighborhood often did. The hill rose above the surrounding favelas and offered sweeping views of Guanabara Bay. It was a place of play, of freedom. But on that afternoon, the boy stumbled through the tall grass near the summit and found something that would change this hill forever. Two men, lying side by side in the brush, perfectly still. They were dressed in matching formal suits, and over their eyes, crude oval-shaped masks fashioned from lead. Beside them lay a small notebook filled with cryptic instructions. No blood, no signs of a struggle. Just two men in suits, wearing lead masks, on a hilltop in Brazil. They were dead. And no one, not the police, not forensic scientists, not investigators across nearly 6 decades, has been able to explain exactly what happened to them. The dead men were quickly identified through personal belongings found nearby. The first was Manuel Pereira da Cruz, 32 years old. The second was Miguel José Viana, 34. Both men were electronic technicians, skilled repair workers who made their living fixing televisions, radios, and other consumer electronics. They worked together in the town of Campos dos Goitacazes, a mid-sized city roughly 170 miles north of Niterói. By all accounts, they were ordinary, well-regarded men. Manuel was married. Miguel was married with children. Their neighbors described them as quiet, reliable, and hard-working. They had no criminal records, no known history of mental illness, no enemies anyone could identify. But they did share something beyond their profession, a deep, consuming fascination with what they called scientific spiritualism. Friends and family would later reveal that Manuel and Miguel spent their free time conducting experiments that blurred the line between electronics and the paranormal. They believed that through the right combination of technology, chemistry, and ritual, they could make contact with intelligences beyond normal human perception. Whether those intelligences were spirits, extraterrestrials, or something else entirely, that part was never clear even to those closest to them. On August 17, 1966, 3 days before their bodies were discovered, Manuel and Miguel left Campos dos Goitacazes together. They told their families they were traveling to the city of Sao Paulo to purchase a used car and some electronic components for their workshop. It was a routine explanation that raised no suspicion. But they did not go to Sao Paulo. Instead, they boarded a bus bound for Niterói, a coastal city across the bay from Rio de Janeiro. Investigators later retraced their movements through witness statements. At around 2:30 in the afternoon, the two men entered a small shop in Niterói and purchased waterproof raincoats, an odd choice for a clear summer day. Shortly after, they stopped at a local bar and bought a bottle of mineral water. The waitress who served them would later provide a crucial detail to police. She recalled that Miguel appeared anxious. He kept glancing at his watch, as though they were running behind schedule, as though something was waiting for them. After leaving the bar, Manuel and Miguel were seen heading in the direction of Vintem Hill. They were carrying the raincoats and the water bottle, and from that point forward, their movements became a complete mystery. No one saw them climb the hill. No one saw what happened at the top. 3 days of silence followed, until the boy with the kite found them. When police arrived at the scene on August 20th, the tableau that awaited them was unlike anything they had encountered before. The two men lay on their backs, side by side, on a patch of flattened grass near the summit of Vintem Hill. Each wore a formal suit and a brand-new raincoat. Their clothes were clean. Their appearance was almost dignified, as though they had carefully prepared themselves for this moment. Over each man's eyes was a mask, a crude, oval-shaped piece of lead, roughly cut and bent to fit the contours of the face. The masks resembled the kind of protective shielding used in industrial welding or radiation work, but these were clearly handmade. They had no eye holes. Whoever wore them could not have seen anything. They were not designed for vision. They were designed for protection. But protection from what? Nearby, investigators found the empty bottle of water, the waterproof raincoats, and most importantly, a small notebook. The contents of that notebook would become the most discussed piece of evidence in the entire case. The notebook was small, ordinary-looking, the kind you might buy at any stationery shop. But the words written inside were anything but ordinary. In careful handwriting, the notebook contained what appeared to be a step-by-step procedure, a set of instructions that the men had apparently been following. The relevant entry read, 1630, be at the agreed-upon place. 1830, ingest capsules. After the effect, protect metals and wait for the mask signal. Each line raises more questions than it answers. The agreed-upon place. Was Vintem Hill a prearranged meeting point? If so, who arranged it and with whom? Ingest capsules. What capsules? What substance did they contain? Were they drugs, medicine, or something else entirely? No capsules or containers were found at the scene. After the effect, what effect were they expecting? A physical sensation? A hallucination? An altered state of consciousness? Protect metals, with the lead masks. Were the masks the metal protection referenced in the note? And finally, wait for the mask signal. What signal? From whom? From where? The notebook reads like the final steps of a ritual that both men clearly understood and had agreed to perform. But it was a ritual no one else has ever been able to decode. Investigators searched for other pages, other notebooks, any additional written records that might provide context. They found nothing. These instructions, written in this single notebook, are all that remain of whatever plan Manuel and Miguel believed they were carrying out. With no visible cause of death at the scene, all hopes rested on the autopsies. Surely medical examination would reveal what had killed these two apparently healthy men. But the autopsies only deepened the mystery. The forensic pathologists found no signs of physical trauma, no gunshot wounds, no stab marks, no blunt force injuries, no evidence of strangulation or suffocation. There were no broken bones, no bruising, no defensive wounds that would suggest a struggle. Externally, the bodies appeared untouched. The internal examination was equally frustrating. Toxicology tests, the one avenue that might have explained the capsules mentioned in the notebook, were inconclusive. The bodies had lain on the sun-baked hilltop for 3 days in the Brazilian summer heat. Decomposition had advanced significantly, degrading the organs and making it impossible to detect many common poisons or drugs. The stomach contents, which might have revealed what the men ingested, were too decomposed to analyze. The official cause of death was listed as undetermined. In practical terms, the medical examiners were saying, "We don't know what killed them." To this day, the cause of death for both Manuel Pereira da Cruz and Miguel José Viana remains officially unknown. As if the case weren't strange enough, a bizarre coincidence emerged during the investigation. Multiple independent witnesses in the Niterói area came forward to report that they had seen unidentified flying objects in the sky above Vintem Hill on the evening of August 17th, the very night the two men are believed to have died. The witnesses described seeing bright, oval-shaped lights hovering silently above the hilltop. Some said the lights pulsed rhythmically. Others described them changing color, shifting from white to orange to blue. One witness reported seeing the lights descend toward the summit before rising again and disappearing. The timing was extraordinary. These sightings occurred at roughly the same time the notebook instructions suggested the men would have been on the hill, waiting for their signal. Were these UFO sightings genuine? Were they related to whatever Manuel and Miguel were doing? Or were they simply a coincidence? Unrelated atmospheric phenomena that happened to occur in the same place on the same night? The Brazilian authorities never officially investigated the UFO reports in connection with the deaths. But in the court of public opinion, The sighting cemented the lead masks case as one of the most enigmatic intersections of true crime and unexplained phenomena in history. As investigators dug deeper into the lives of Manuel and Miguel, a clearer picture of their private world began to emerge. And it was far stranger than anyone had imagined. Friends and family confirmed that both men had been deeply involved in what they called scientific spiritualism, a movement that blended elements of spiritism, which was widely practiced in Brazil, with pseudo-scientific experimentation. They weren't casual hobbyists. They were dedicated practitioners. The men reportedly conducted experiments in their electronics workshop, attempting to build devices that could communicate with spirits or detect presences beyond normal human perception. They studied texts on the occult, on extraterrestrial contact, and on the effects of various substances on human consciousness. Some sources suggest they were part of a small, informal group of like-minded experimenters. Other technicians and radio enthusiasts who believed that certain frequencies, combined with chemical compounds and mental preparation, could open doorways to contact with non-human intelligence. The lead masks, in this context, begin to make a terrible kind of sense. If they believed they were about to experience something powerful, a signal, a visitation, a moment of contact, the lead was their protection. The capsules were their preparation. The hilltop at dusk was their chosen place. Everything in the notebook aligns with a planned experiment, a ritual they had rehearsed, discussed, and believed in. But something went catastrophically wrong. Over nearly 6 decades, the lead masks case has generated a constellation of theories, each attempting to explain the unexplainable. The most prosaic theory suggests murder. In this version, the men were lured to Vintem Hill by a third party who had them ingest poison under the pretense of a spiritual experiment. The lead masks and the notebook were props, designed to make the deaths look like a bizarre suicide pact or failed ritual, throwing investigators off the trail. But who would want to kill 2 ordinary electronic technicians? And why go to such elaborate lengths? Another theory proposes accidental death. The men, sincere in their beliefs, ingested a substance they believed would facilitate spiritual contact. Perhaps it was a psychoactive compound. LSD was circulating in Brazil in the 1960s. Or perhaps it was something toxic they had obtained through their electronics contacts. They took the capsules, put on their masks, and waited. But instead of visions or contact, the substance killed them. The contact ritual theory takes this further, suggesting the men genuinely believed they were about to communicate with extraterrestrial or spiritual beings. The entire procedure, the timing, the location, the capsules, the masks, was a protocol they had developed or received from their spiritualist group. They followed it faithfully, and it killed them. A more recent theory proposes that the men may have been exposed to toxic substances through their electronics repair work, perhaps lead or mercury, and the experiment was actually a desperate folk medicine attempt at a cure. Each theory illuminates part of the puzzle, but none explains everything. The lead masks, the notebook, the formal suits, the missing 3 days, the UFO sightings. Taken individually, each element is strange. Taken together, they form a mystery that has resisted every attempt at resolution. Nearly 60 years later, the lead masks case remains one of the most haunting and baffling unexplained deaths in the history of criminal investigation. It has been featured in books, documentaries, and television programs around the world. It was included in a famous issue of the Fortean Times and has been analyzed by researchers in fields ranging from forensic science to ufology. And yet, for all the attention, for all the theories, the central questions remain unanswered. What did Manuel Pereira de Cruz and Miguel José Viana believe they were doing on Vintem Hill? What did they ingest? What signal were they waiting for? And what killed them? 2 ordinary men, electronic technicians from a small Brazilian city, dressed in their best suits, climbed a hill at sunset with lead masks, a bottle of water, and a notebook full of instructions. They followed their procedure step by step. They ingested their capsules. They put on their masks. And they lay down to wait. Whatever they were waiting for, a signal, a vision, a visitor, it never came. Or perhaps it did, and no one else was there to see it. The case has never been solved. The lead masks, the notebook, and the truth about what happened on Vintem Hill, all of it remains locked in the silence of a grassy summit overlooking the lights of Niteroi. This has been Cold Vault. If this case unsettled you, subscribe, because the next one will too.